Series 12 involved a mixture of different types of episodes, a mixture of different quality of episodes. Billy! It involved some old villains returning and some mind-blowing revelations. So it's time to do the traditional thing after a series has finished and rank all of the episodes from Series 12.
The name's Doctor. The Doctor. We're on the list.
Hi, I'm Phil. Welcome to my channel where I talk about all the geeky pop culture that I enjoy, including Doctor Who. I would have liked to have gotten this video out a week after the finale aired, but unfortunately I've been a bit busy. I apologise about that. But without further ado, let's get on with my Series 12 rankings. Let me know what your rankings were in the comments below, because I'd be interested to see if we have similar things on the top of our list, similar things on the bottom of our lists. Now at number 10, I think a lot of people will have this on the bottom of their list. In fact, I've seen a couple of lists already, and this is on the bottom of every list I have seen. Orphan 55. This episode was going quite well for the first third, I'd say. The monster design was great, and it was used to horror-inducing effect. I like the fact that they were keeping them in the shadows, utilising jump scares, etc. And it had a kind of like Alien vibe, as in the movie Alien. But the episode starts to fall apart a bit when they leave the resort. The tension kind of just dissipates, the plot lines of the engineer and his son doesn't go anywhere. The scene with Benny's voice was laughable.
If anyone can, will they please shoot me?
Benny!
And then they end the episode with the speech, rather than any kind of proper narrative conclusion. Oh yeah, and the Doctor could have gone back and saved the woman and her daughter. All in all, I think this episode had a lot of potential, but just didn't live up to it, and kind of the last third, two-thirds, maybe even, spoiled it a bit. At number 9, I've got Nikola Tesla's Night of Terror. Now, I'll start by saying I thought the actor that played Tesla in this episode did a wonderful job. He was possibly one of the best guest actors we've had on the show of the modern era. Certainly up there in the top 5. He was captivating when he was on screen, definitely. However, the plot itself lacked something I can't quite put my finger on. The villains felt underdeveloped for a start. They didn't do much and felt a bit like a Arachnos ripoff in their style. However, I did like the parallel between the monsters and Edison, profiting off of others' inventions, that kind of thing. That was good. It just, I don't know, there was just something, and I can't quite put my hand on it, but it just didn't do it for me, apart from the performance of Tesla, which was fantastic. At number 8, I've put Spyfall Part 2.
I'm not where I wanted to be, but I can work with this.
I've seen a lot of people rate this one higher than Part 1, even. And I can see why. The chemistry between the Master and the Doctor is definitely electrifying. Whenever they're on screen together, it's fantastic. The reason I've put it lower are the scenes that aren't the Doctor and Master ones. The companions, especially, barely get anything to do in this episode, and when they are on screen, I just kind of felt myself asking why. They weren't doing anything of any importance. They didn't bring anything character-wise massively to them in this episode, unlike the first part. And, and then there was Graham's laser shoes, which, some people might have liked, but I kind of found a little bit ridiculous on the whole. And the worst part of this episode was the whole plot. The whole villain's plot was foiled off-screen by the Doctor. It was just a massive anticlimax right at the end. At number 7, I've put Praxeus. Unlike Orphan 55, this is a much better example of how to weave a message for your audience into the plot. It's not just tacked on as a speech at the end, it's an integral part of the story. And there were some lovely character moments, from Graham in particular, showing off Bradley's excellent acting skills. It wasn't perfect though. It had too many characters for a start. The vlogger woman was redundant after her first couple of scenes and just felt like she was hanging around, and the lab assistant seemed to be there just to be killed and for no one to really care. 6. Spyfall Part 1. The series started strong with this episode. It was a fun adventure throughout, and then that twist. I just wish they'd made more of Stephen Fry. Kind of felt a little bit unused, but other than that, I can't really fault this one too much. 5. Can You Hear Me? Now this would be a lot higher if it wasn't for the ending. The bulk of this story was amazing. Great character work from all the companions that really help us get to know and understand them, their motivations, their fears and such. Yaz particularly shines in this episode. The villain is note perfect. That was such a good performance. Creepy, menacing presence throughout. But the ending is rushed. The threat resolved far too easily with a swish of the Sonic on a bit of tech. These were gods. They should have taken some more defeating. This should maybe have been a two-parter, or at least it needed another 10 minutes of them trying to defeat the bad guys at the very least. And for that reason, that's why it's lower down on the list than I would have otherwise have put it based on the rest of the episode. 4. The Timeless Children. I suspect a lot of how you might rate this episode on your own rankings depends on how you feel about the additions to the lore of the show. Personally, I find the revelations exciting. It's not exactly what I would have done, but the show shouldn't have to pander to individual fan whims, and I don't hold it against it for going in a different direction. Saying that, the episode wasn't perfect. A lot of it was a big exposition dump. There wasn't much going on. It was a lot of talking at us and at the Doctor, while the Doctor didn't really do much. However, at least the exposition this time was performed really well by Sacha Dhawan as the Master. A lot of the exposition in this era has been very clunky, but I think mainly due to Sacha's Master performance here. In this instance, it at least doesn't come across as clunky. There's still far too much of it in a way, and it's still too much talking, but at least it's engaging while he's doing it. Also, the supporting characters from the last episode kind of got a bit sidelined in this episode. They were there, but they weren't really doing anything. As did the Cyberman threat as well, which was kind of just whisked away by the Master. But the scenes between the Doctor and the Master again were electrifying, just like they were in Spyfall Part 2, and I was still on the edge of my seat waiting to find out the reveals. My top 3 have been really hard to decide, and one of the reasons why I've taken so long to do this list is I just can't decide which order to put them in. So this is absolutely subject to change, and my opinion changes on it daily. But currently, here is my current order. And number 3, Ascension of the Cybermen. The first part of this 2-part finale did a good job of conveying the danger. The battle at the beginning that goes horribly wrong for Team TARDIS almost immediately, and the menace of the lone Cyberman create this threat that remains strong throughout. I thought the team getting split up worked really well to give them all something to do, and the supporting cast were good too. Number 2, The Haunting of Villa Diodati. Great episode. The first section of it is textbook spooky horror, building tension, and then the Cyberman turns up. This is probably the most interesting a Cyberman has been as an individual character. Broken, alone, with rage. Everyone was great in this episode. The companions, the supporting cast. The Doctor also gets a powerful speech, and it sets up the finale nicely. Which means number 1 at the moment, although like I say, on a daily basis this keeps changing for me, I'm putting Fugitive of the Judoon. And I really did and ah about this placement. It's only just scraped in at the moment, to be honest, because it isn't flawless. It sidelines its title villains, and the Jack cameo, while I punched the air at the time, felt cheap in retrospect once he didn't appear in the rest of the series. And also Yaz's police background should have been used more in this episode when you have Rhino Space Police. But I did think it was paced perfectly. Ruth and Lee were brilliantly portrayed by Joe Martin and Neil Stuke, respectively. And when Ruth got her memories back and revealed herself as the Doctor...
Hello, I'm the Doctor.
That was crazy in a good way. Yeah, it may have thrown up some potential inconsistencies, but in the moment, that was really great stuff. We got to see the emotional shock on 13, we got to see a really cool new TARDIS, and we got a lot of questions and mysteries that we're still pondering to this day. It may not have been perfect, but it was a fun ride. So there you go, that's my ranking of Series 12 of Doctor Who. Where do you agree and where do you disagree? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for listening. I'll be back for more Doctor Who content soon, so if you're not already, do consider hitting that subscribe button, and if you're already subscribed, consider hitting the bell button instead, because that gives you notifications and stuff. Like I said, thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.